Hello everyone, welcome back to another James Bashford tutorial. I just want to quickly say before we start, I apologise to all my subscribers for being really bad with tutorials recently. It's just been a bit hectic with school and everything, but I'm back and we're going to be doing another Realflow tutorial. I'm doing a little bit differently this time. My last Realflow tutorial was mainly based around using Cinemorph 4D in conjunction with Realflow, but I'm deciding to move away from that and actually show you how to morph items or text, or basically how to morph liquid from one look to another. You can use it for text. I have used it for text, but it's not the most accurate, and you have to spend quite a lot of time kind of adjusting and kind of finessing it. But so today we're not going to be doing text, but I'm going to be showing you the concepts behind it, and we're going to be doing. I'm just going to be using some basic objects that come with Realflow, but as I said, if you look at my past Realflow tutorial, there's the whole beginning sections importing objects from Cinema 4D and then exporting out of Realflow. But today it's going to be solely within Realflow, so let's begin. Firstly, you need to open up Realflow. As you can see, I have Realflow open up here. So you just want to type in your project, so I'm just going to type in Morph tutorial, or Morph tuts, it's easier, and then you just click create new project. So now I'm using 2012, but it should be the same in all versions because I'm using a plugin that I think's been in since Realflow 3. I'm not sure, but you should be fine with that. It's just I was lucky enough to get a copy of 2012. But yeah, so how we're going to start is you want to make a new object. So you can see if you're new to Realflow, here's just your basic ones. So you have your grid fluid, particle fluid, daemons, objects, mesh, so on and so forth. It's pretty similar in the movement to other 3D packages, at least Cinema 4D, in the sense of Alt left click will move the plane in perspective, and then Control middle click will pan, and then Control right click will zoom in and out. So pretty much it's just Alt and then left click, middle click, or right click to either pan, do perspective, or orbit even, that's a better word for it, and then zoom. So basically what you're just going to want to do is you're going to want to go to your object menu and just pick two objects. So I'm going to do a rocket and a sphere. So I'm just going to, so here your movement, scale, rotate tool, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to move this more in line with the rocket and make it a little bit bigger because basically the volume of the rocket needs to morph into the volume of the sphere. So although it won't be perfect, it should be pretty close. Okay, so now that you've got your object made, you'll see they'll show up in the nodes as well as the global links. That's as we want it. Now we're going to make our fluid. So you want to click on the particle menu, and you're going to want to use a fill object. And what this will do is it will fill a mesh. So you can do this with exported items from Cinema 4D, Max, Maya, whatever your 3D packages. You can do this with it. Just export out your object using the SD exporter. As I said, I've covered that in another episode, so if you want to check that out, do. Okay, so now in the node parameters of your fill object, you want to go to where it says fill object and object. Select the first item you want it to be. So I wanted to start off with a rocket and then change into the sphere. So we're going to tell it to fill the rocket. I'm going to say fill volume. And what you can actually do is on the rocket and sphere, just go to the display and say visible no. You don't want to have to see them. You just want to be able to know. So they're placeholders, basically, is what they are. So you can see this isn't particularly full, so we're going to want to put the resolution up. I'm going to probably change mine to 2, and then just reset once you've changed the amount of fluid. That's not perfect, but yeah. Anyway, you want to also on the rocket and sphere. Sorry, I forgot to mention this, but on the node, you want it to be inactive, because otherwise, although you won't see them, the fluid will react with them if they're active, so the fluid won't be able to get outside of the rocket, and it won't be able to get into the sphere, so you need it to be able to do that. So you're going to want to put it up to like 15 or something when you actually render it out, but I'm only going to be working at a resolution of 5, just for the sake of speed. And it's going to come up with all these warnings, just ignore them. It's not really a huge problem. So basically, if we just simulate this, you're just going to see it's just going to move about. It's not going to do anything particularly fun or interesting. Just got a few kind of rogue particles, and it's nothing particularly awesome at all. So I'm just going to reset that and start again. So basically the main plugin we're going to be using is, there is another Morph plugin, but I am unfamiliar with it. So I'm going to be teaching you the kind of the native plugin for Realflow that kind of does this transformation of fluid. And if you go into your daemons menu, it's called Magic. So you can see it's got a little magician's hat, and you just want to click on that, and you'll see it will appear in your view. Doesn't matter where that is. It's literally just a case of what's the word I want? It's literally just a case of it's there. It doesn't really matter. So anyway, in the objects, you're going to want to select the one you want it to morph into. Just want to make sure that's all correct. And then in theory, you should be able to simulate, and it should go into a sphere. So you can see it's not 100% perfect, but the particles are doing something, and you can see they're trying to go into some form of a circular shape. But it looks dreadful. So if I actually just play that back a little bit more of a reasonable speed, you can see you've got all these kind of weird particles and all kinds of strange stuff. So what you want to actually do is increase your approach strength, because basically the approach strength is how strong will the attraction or force melding it into a ball be. So you want that to be about 6 or 7. I'm going to put mine at 7. You can do it higher, just give it an experiment. And you'll see. And then the escape strength is how strong is the force keeping it that way. So I usually put mine up to 25. You can experiment. It depends how complex of a shape you want. And now if I just reset and give this a go, you see, so it moves in much faster. It gives a little bit more random movement, and you can see already it's having far more, it looks far more like a sphere. As you can see, I got my scaling a bit wrong with the thing, because unfortunately there's no uniform scaling. That's why I always recommend, it's a better idea to actually export items out of a 3D package, just for the simple fact that you can get the scaling a bit better, where in Realflow, scaling is a bit awkward. But yeah, so that's basically what the magic does. But yet again, what you can actually do is you can make this a lot more exciting than just it instantly forming. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to keyframe this. So we're going to go up to about 40, keyframe 40, or frame 40 even, and then what we're going to do is on the node, we're going to turn the magic inactive and say add key. Okay, so now if we reset this, what you'll see is that it's actually inactive now. It won't do anything. And then at about frame 41, at frame 41, what you want to do is you want to say active and then add key. So now what this will do is we'll actually keyframe it. So now when we simulate, hold on, I just need to reset this simulation. So now when we simulate, what will happen is you'll get a little bit of random movement, and then at frame 40, that's when it will morph. So the people can actually kind of find out what the object is. And what we can actually do now is, if we leave those keyframes at frame 40, I'm going to add another daemon. Now all of this you can actually just experiment with. This is just me kind of showing you the general ideas behind it. But what I like to do is, if you add a noise field, and then make it, and then add a keyframe at frame 40, and then on frame 41 make it inactive. So basically when the magic demon becomes active, the noise field demon becomes inactive, so that they don't interfere with each other. And basically you'll see what the noise field does now. Yep. And you see it just kind of warps it, and it makes it go, and then you'll see the magic demon will then form it in. So now this is when you want to probably play with your approach strength and your escape strength, because if you saw it kind of, I quite like that, but if you look, if I just stop simulating, when it came in, it went past each other. So if you don't want that to happen, what you just have to do is go onto the magic demon and just make the escape strength 100, say, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So basically, you can do it with any kind of item. I'm just trying to show you the basic premise behind what the settings do, and how it affects it. So as I said, you can play around with the noise field, but okay, so now you should see there shouldn't be so much kind of erraticness. As you saw, it went into the ball, and it's struggling to change out of that, which is what we want. You can see now that the simulation time's starting to get a little bit longer. What I may actually do is I may just offset the noise field a little. I'll actually make it inactive till frame 10. And then it will become active at frame 11. Just make it active. So this is just another thing, is you can translate this to any daemon. So this is just another thing I wanted to show you, is the keyframing within Realflow. Is you can keyframe effects on the objects. So if I show you now and I simulate, you'll get that little bit of random movement, but only at frame 10 will it actually start to go a bit crazy. But say now I didn't think that was fast enough, in the sense of it barely moved and then got formed into the ball. What you can actually do is you can make the noise field more erratic, kind of more effectful. Yet again, I'm not doing this for any specific thing, so pretty much do it for your purpose. This is probably going to look rubbish, and I could have made it much longer, and you're going to have to keep that in mind when doing your project, if it's for anything like an intro or something like that. But I'm just trying to show you kind of the concepts behind it. So in the noise field, there's a strength, and if I put that up to 5, it should be 5 times crazier, for want of a better word. So you should see yeah, there we go. So you see it spreads out much further, much quicker, and then you get this forming back in. And you can see the noise, the magic demon's actually struggling to keep it in there. And that's kind of what you want. It's kind of this erraticness of the fluid and so on. So that's basically how you get it to do the morphing. And this is kind of weird. I don't know whether it's maybe not just a bug within Realflow, but it's difficult to do like 3 morphing, like morphing into an object, then the morphed object morphing into another object. But so I'm going to show you the way I've worked out to do it. This is probably not the best way, but the thing is you can't keyframe the object that it changes into. If you do that, nothing happens and it just goes crazy. So what I actually do is, so now I see, okay, I wanted to start morphing at frame 120. What I actually then do is change it from the sphere to the cross at 120, and then just simulate from 120 onwards. And what you'll see is it will then form, oh, hold on, sorry, go back to frame 120. You see, we did something I said we must always remember to do. Make sure it's inactive, and make sure you can't see it. Okay, so simulate from frame 120, and you'll see it will then form into a cross type thing. It's probably not as enough particles, just for the simple fact that my resolution is quite low. But if I show you now, we have it morphing from a rocket to a sphere to a cross. So yeah, so that's just the way I do it, is you just go to the keyframe that you want, the frame you want it to go from the second object into the third object, or the fourth, or the fifth, etc., and then change the object. But you must just make sure that you don't simulate from 0 onwards, and you must be happy with the transformation from the first object to the second object before you move on to the transformation from the second to the third. Otherwise, you're going to have a really messy workflow, and it's just not going to work, and you're going to get really frustrated. So I'm just warning you about that now, is make sure you are happy with each transformation before you move on to the next one, and make sure you save it at that point, because then if you accidentally simulate it wrong, you can just reload that, and then you've got the base simulation once again without any kind of problems within the simulation. So that's a big thing I'd always recommend. Okay, now what I want to show you to do is how to make it into a mesh, which a lot of you seem to be having problems with on the other one. So I'm going to try go a little bit slower and make more sense this time around. But basically what making it into a mesh is it makes it into a 3D object that a 3D package like Cinema 4D or 3ds Max or Maya or Lightwave or whatever, or Houdini or whatever you're using can understand. Because at the moment, these are just Realflow particles. Realflow understands it, but any other 3D package will just reject it. It's not a file format they recognize, and so we need to change that. And the way we do this is by making a mesh. And what I always do before making a mesh is I always work in a lower resolution than what I'm going to render out in. So I'm probably going to render out in 15. And then, so you can do that, but I'm only going to simulate to 120, just for the simple fact that I'm a bit lazy. Because I don't really need the second simulation, to be honest. So you can see there's way more particles. My computer's running a lot slower. But yeah, as I said, the thing, I suppose, hopefully you'll have a stronger system. It's just I have to do this crazy workaround, just because my system, unfortunately, is a bit slow. I don't have an incredibly strong system. It's something I built myself a few years ago now. And I am going to try upgrade it soon. But as you can see, what you actually need to do is once you've got it all set up, it should be fine in the sense of all you have to do is, so I've set the parameters of my noise field in my magic daemon. So in theory, my simulation should be exactly the same. It's just in a higher. Ooh, hold on. Just screwing that up. Just in a higher resolution. So you just have to re-simulate all your initial simulations. So if I show you, I'm just going to re-simulate it going into the sphere, and then I'm going to stop it at frame 120 and then change it to the cross and simulate into that. So you do have to kind of just make sure you're on your toes, and I must say it's one of the more glitchy things within Realflow, but it's a really cool effect and you can get some really nice things out of it. And as I said, I don't have the save file anymore because the cache file was massive. But I did a test a few weeks ago where I actually did like an intro where it had a word and then formed into another word that formed into another word that formed into another word. If you do that, what I recommend is when you make your 3D topography in your 3D package, make sure there's quite a good separation between the letters. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you end up getting like this metaballing in between the letters, which just looks, for want of a better word, horrible. So I'm just making you aware of that, so that when you do it, you don't get frustrated. Because you don't really see it within the particle simulation, but when you mesh it, you get these, like, holes within the mesh and so on. So you need to make sure that your letters are sufficiently, have a sufficient gap and are sufficiently wide or large enough not to get that. Especially letters like E, like a lowercase e. Though, that's another thing, is I'd recommend typing in capitals if you use this method. Just for the simple thing that, like, underscore e's and, under lowercase e's and so on, are always a bit, kind of, you can work around it, but it is difficult to work with. But yeah, so you can see I have my high-res simulation now. So you can see it goes from a rocket to a sphere to a cross. Okay, so now I want to mesh this. The way you do this is you click on this, it's called the mesh menu, and you want to make a particle mesh standard. The render kit version's a bit stranger to use, so I just use the standard. So you can see you have your particle mesh here. It automatically puts your fill object in because it's the producer. So now what you want to do is you just want to click this button at a few frames, and then you'll see it start to mesh. If you're doing text, what you should do is, I'll show you when it's done, is you can render like single frames, so you can make sure that it looks okay, but this is pretty much just how you do it if you're in a rush. You just make a mesh object and then just click mesh animation, and you can see the little green flash, that is the mesh. So it's just going through and looking at all the particles and creating a mesh. And then you'll see in a minute, you'll actually see the green mesh going around. Just give it a chance to load. But yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to comment. I'm more than willing to help. It took me quite a long time to work out a lot of the stuff in Realflow, and I'm learning every day. I do not profess to be a Realflow pro in any make, shape, or form, but it's a really good program if you can bear dealing with it. And the faster your system is, the more pleasant it is to deal with. It's just I don't have the best kind of relationship with Realflow, just for the simple fact that my system struggles with it, because I got like 2 gigs of RAM. So the more RAM you've got, the better processor you've got. I don't really think a graphics card makes a huge difference within Realflow, but definitely your processor and your RAM make a huge difference. So if you've got a really fast system, you should love this program. If you've got a slower system, I would still say give it a go, because if you're willing to sit through this kind of stuff, then you can get some awesome results. Like, I mean, Realflow just produces some really mind-blowing stuff, and if you can really get in depth with it, you can do some pretty crazy animations. Like, I mean, they've got their whole hybrido system, which is just mental. And also, if you're a 3ds Max person, and you've got Krakatoa, you can do a lot of coloring by velocity, and you can make some really nice foam. I'm not a very big 3ds Max man, in the sense of I've never really used it to its full capability, so honestly, I don't know much about it. I just know you have that capability, and yeah, it's definitely something to look into. So now you can see it's finished doing that. I'm just going to turn my particles off. They're still on in the background, but you just can't see them now. But so if you see, this green thing is our mesh. So if I play through, you can see now we have a meshed version of our animation. And you can play around with it. You can make the polygons bigger or smaller. You can up the res. I'm not going to clown around with it majorly. I'm just giving you a basic tutorial how to do that. I'm sure people have shown how to do this a little bit more carefully and so on. But I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. If you'd like me to do a more advanced version, or you'd like me to do specific Realflow tutorials, just message me and I'll look into it. But otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this. Rate, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I hope everyone does well. And if you get something that looks really cool and you render it out, feel free to post it as a video response. I love to see what everyone makes, because 9 times out of 10 you guys make something cooler with what I tell you than what I can do, because I've got the creativity of a snail. No offense to snails, but yeah, I'm sure you guys can do some pretty crazy stuff with this. So thanks for watching, and I hope my voice hasn't annoyed you. Anyway, thanks a lot. Bye. See ya.